Okay, good morning. Welcome to the partner session. My name's Keir. I'm from Shopify, and we're a few minutes ahead of schedule. So we just always like to come on to make sure that everything's running smoothly. So got 21 people joining us already, which is great. If you can hear me, please drop a thumbs up or something into the questions facility on GoToWebinar. Yes, thank you, David. You can hear us. That's good news. Always good to do a tech check. So we're kicking off in 3 minutes, but I'd like to introduce, for those of you who are here, Alex O'Byrne from We Make Websites, who are the UK's leading Shopify expert. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
How are you today?
Very good, yeah. Very happy to be on here.
Thank you for joining us. Alex is speaking from one of his office meeting rooms, so if it's a little bit echoey, we apologise, but it was better than the chit chat of a very busy office there in London. So, we'll be kicking off, as I say, in a couple of minutes. And today's partner session isn't, strictly speaking, focused on Shopify as such, but we asked Alex along as his agency, and just through conversations with him, I've got to know him and his team pretty well over the last couple of years, but they did something very interesting in terms of how they market their agency using content marketing. And this is a topic that I think is pretty close to your heart, Alex.
Yep, I love content marketing for many reasons, which I'll get into. And yeah, it really was the turning point for our company.
Yeah.
So I think around the same time we switched to just doing Shopify and just doing content that's aimed at that specific type of merchant, and that has transformed our business. So that is what this is about.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to learning more. Although I've had the privilege of seeing Alex talk on this and a couple of other topics over the last couple of years, so I know we're in for a treat. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes. If you do have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them into the questions facility, as I like to call it, in GoToWebinar. We will have maybe 15-20 minutes at the end where I can pick out some questions there and put those to Alex. And if we have time, we can also maybe, and if you're willing, turn on the mics and you can ask a question directly yourself. That can go one of two ways. Normally it works pretty well, but we've also had some immense failures with the technology, so hopefully that won't be the case today. But be interested to know if everyone's based in the UK or Europe. Always good to know. Sometimes we have people dialing in from all over the world, but this is the first time we've done this on a sort of European time zone. So if you are outside of Europe, it'd be very interested to know where you've joined us from. Okay, a few more people have joined, which is great. Oh, South Africa. Wow, welcome.
Yeah.
I don't think the time zone's that different, though, having been there. I think I flew for 14 hours, and I think you're an hour ahead or something. So, oh, and India as well.
Yeah,
okay. That's excellent. It's nice to see some new countries popping up on the list. Okay, so it is 11 o'clock. So welcome to this Shopify partner session. My name is Keir Whitaker, and I work on the partners team for Shopify. I'm actually based in the UK. The majority of my team are over in Ottawa. We normally do these webinars on or EST, Eastern Standard Time, but we're very, very keen to also engage with our European audience, and we'll be doing more and more on the European time zone as well. Just to let you know, we do record these partner sessions, we edit them out, and we'll make this video and the subsequent Q&A at the end available to you. We'll be sending an email follow-up within the next few days. So if you do unfortunately have to take a call or attend to something else, don't worry, we will let you have a link to the video right after. As I said, to those of you who joined a few minutes earlier, we do have a questions facility in the GoToWebinar. If you have anything that you would like to ask Alex during, and you want to make a note of that during the webinar, please feel free, and we will get to those at the end. Without further ado, let me introduce Alex O'Byrne from We Make Websites. We Make Websites are the Shopify's leading UK expert, and they are exclusively focused on Shopify. A couple of years ago, I had the privilege of meeting Alex and his business partner Piers, and we got chatting, and it became very, very clear that one of the keys to their sort of success as an agency was through their approach to content marketing. And this is something, as Alex will explain, is something that they've really focused on, and it has proved real dividends. So as I said, please do drop any questions you have into the questions facility during the conversation, and I will pull those out at the end for Alex. But yes, let's kick it off, and please welcome Alex.
Thanks a lot, Keir, and hello to everyone. Yeah, especially a person who's far away in South Africa. It's really cool that you're all listening in. 34 people. 34 is actually my lucky number, so well, hopefully more people join. And yeah, I'm going to talk about how we doubled our agency with content marketing. So I've spoken at a lot of places on e-commerce and how to improve an e-commerce business. And this is some of the examples of the sort of work that we do on Shopify. So I would say that people tend to use this because they're kind of design-led retailers. So they're often doing fashion or cycling or gifts or furniture and that kind of thing. We're based in central London and we're all in-house. And yeah, every single day we're working with Shopify and building businesses on there. Just quickly about us then. So our big thing is that we make websites that make you more successful. We're the highest rated on Shopify experts in the UK, and we're all based in-house here in London. And we try and do these kind of case studies that show that as well as looking good, our websites also convert better as well. And these are some of our big clients that we've got running on Shopify, but we also do a lot of what I would call growth stage companies where someone like Darmis was the quickest selling lingerie brand in Selfridges. We've got a couple of Build Business finalists here. Luxy Hair, massive Shopify store. Tosh Azer in Topshop, and Christopher Raven was British Fashion Award winner in 2012. So we also do lots of growth stage and also lots of startups. But going back a few years, back to 2012, the heady days, I was actually living in a garden shed in London in a photography studio that I was making with some friends. And it was kind of a fun time, so we made this studio from scratch. In fact, when we took it over, it looked like this. And we worked together to make it into a gallery and studio and used for loads of stuff, including gigs and yoga and things like that. And at the same time, I was running this agency as well. So back then, it was just Piers and I who, that's me doing some manual labor, actually, trying to put some stuff on the roof. So very time. Here is me as a vampire and Piers as Goose from Top Gun, I believe. And we were having a good time, just the two of us running this agency and using a lot of freelancers. And I think I got to a stage where there was a lot going on. I was doing the studio, I was doing this business, and I decided to, after our first birthday, there's the first birthday cake, I decided to kind of go away and get some time kind of to think about what we were going to do next. So I went away, had a bit of an epiphany when I was traveling around about really to grow an agency, you've got to do the sales and marketing. So back then I was building everything. So I was the main developer. Although we had some freelancers, I was at the end of the day delivering everything, and Pierce was doing just the design. And I think when you run an agency, you've got to accept that you have got to be a salesperson and a marketing person. And I decided when I came back from this trip that I would really focus on growth. So we all know that running an agency, there's many problems that we share. For example, this, measuring client expectations and actually trying to deliver on what the budget they've got and what times they've got and that kind of thing. But I think growth is a really understated problem in agencies because it's hard. It's hard to differentiate yourself against other agencies. How many times have you met agencies that say, "Oh, we do websites"? I mean, even our name, we make websites, or we do design or whatever. It's just not appealing compared to other agencies. It doesn't offer enough of a magnetic attraction when you actually find the people that are interested in what you do. So if you think about just doing Shopify now, if people are not interested in Shopify or using a different platform, they're just completely switched off. But the ones that are on Shopify, when they find us, they know, wow, this is the agency that I've been looking for. So traditionally, though, I think agencies have struggled to differentiate themselves. Marketing is expensive. It's always expensive to get stuff out there, get ads out there, and things like that. Selling is very high touch because obviously we're doing a technical sales process where you've got to explain a lot and get into the bespoke specification of every single project you work on. So it's time consuming, it's technical, and the founder, like I said, is often the salesperson. But obviously as the founder, you're often trying to do everything. So especially because normally you've started an agency because you enjoy the craft of whatever you do, whether you're a designer or a developer. And the sad truth is that when you're running an agency, you've got to delegate that mostly and focus on growth and actually growing the company. So here's where we are now. So thankfully we got out of the shed and we've got a proper big office now, 15 of us here, and this is our sales. Obviously I can't reveal the numbers, but this is our sales after we decided to focus on content after I got back from my quarter life epiphany back in 2013. So from January 2013 we started really focusing on doing more and more content, and this is where we got to back last year. Now think about the marketing of the 20th century. It's what has been described as interruption marketing. So you're trying to watch TV or drive around and there's a billboard or something in the way, or an advert on TV or an advert on the radio or an advert in a magazine that's kind of getting in the way of what you're doing in order to try and say something to you. And obviously it's highly annoying. It's also decreasing in effectiveness in the age of, say, ad blockers and people being able to hunt out the content that they want themselves, and just kind of ad blindness where people change the radio when an ad comes on, or they just don't even see them on the internet anymore and don't even click on the banners. That kind of more aggressive outbound marketing is really starting to lose its effectiveness. Inbound marketing is one way of looking at it is all the free, in quotes, types of marketing. So things like writing a blog or doing a podcast or doing a webinar or running events, stuff where you can just go and do it yourself and you're not paying someone else to give you the media or the stage to do it on. And there's a couple of good quotes about content marketing. So this is Dharmesh, who's one of the founders at HubSpot. He says, focus on attracting people instead of annoying them. So instead of trying to get in the way of what people are doing and put a sort of irrelevant message there, do something that's actually interesting to them. Because another thing about mass marketing or interruption marketing is because it's often done through mass media, you're making a general message or a general statement that is going to be relevant to mass people. Like think about when you're listening to the radio and ads come on, how often is the one that's actually relevant to what you're doing? Or same with TV, like most of the ads you're just not interested in at all. And another good quote is from Guy Kawasaki, provide good content and you'll earn the right to promote your product. And that's a big thing that we focus on. So everything we write is through the filter of, is this useful to a merchant or not? And then we feel like every so often we earn the right to say, hey, by the way, we actually make websites, and if you are interested, then let's do it. So these are some of the examples, like I said, also known as the free sources. Of course, they're not free because you've got to spend loads of time producing them or paying people to produce them. But that's this like ancient infographic that's been around for about 15 years now. And it's very effective for what we do because it's been shown that websites with blogs have got a huge amount more index pages, so 434% more index pages, and also B2B websites with 51 to 100 pages generate 48% more traffic. So if you're out there, obviously we all know how to make websites, so we should be using this as an opportunity to get more leads. Final one, B2B marketers that use blogs receive 67% more leads than those that do not. So there's a lot of arguments out there for doing this. What I'm going to do now is go through the 5 steps that we took from 2013 to now to really to nail this down. The first step is to define the audience. So for any agency, you should have a very clear idea of what your actual niche is, and therefore who is the person that you're actually selling to. A good place to start is to think about why you exist. So Simon Sinek did a famous talk on TED that was all about this. So he came up with this golden circle, and his argument was that all good companies know why they do what they do. So for example, Tesla, their mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transport. They do it by making expensive, high-end electric cars, but their as they get more and more mature as a market, they're able to produce lower cost cars. But if I just said to you, oh yeah, Tesla make electric cars, I don't capture all that other stuff that they're doing. In fact, they just happen to make electric cars. Their mission is actually to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable transport. And the same could be said, oh, they've actually done that. So the Roadster, Model S, and now the Model 3 are actually out now. And those are that you can see the costs going down over the years. I like to show Procter & Gamble, so I was trying to think of a boring company basically. But even Procter & Gamble, obviously they're selling like shampoo and dog food and stuff, but their why is improve the lives of consumers. And of course that is true. All these things actually do increase their quality of life. They do it by providing superior quality goods, but yeah, they happen to do healthcare and snacks and all the rest of it. But their vision is broader, and I think it's true for all companies. So thinking about us, back in 2012, we were just doing all sorts of websites. We'll do anything basically. Then we switched to just doing Shopify, so that immediately was a stronger filter to think, right, okay, we only do a certain type of website, we only appeal to a certain type of person. But then eventually we came up with a broader vision, which was to help e-commerce businesses succeed and improve the web through design. We do that by providing what we hope to be the best e-commerce website design services possible, but we happen to make e-commerce websites. But what's interesting is once you start thinking about the why, you can end up doing a lot more what's, but they're all consistent with the why. So we do free events, we do a lot of speaking, we make apps, we do ebooks, we're doing podcasts, we're doing tons and tons of stuff, but it's all under that umbrella of helping businesses succeed and improving the web through design. And the people that we aim at are the people that are out there running their own businesses. So these are our clients, they're people that are typically entrepreneurs, or they might be e-commerce managers, and we're trying to help them succeed. We're trying to help them get to the next level. So all our content is geared around that. So that's the first point. The main takeaway there is whatever you produce, it's got to be immediately a win for them. So every article needs to go through the lens of, is this actually interesting to a target audience? So creating engaging content, it needs to be interesting to the audience. It needs to be good quality, of course, well written, well produced, well photographed. It needs to answer a need, and should be something people want to share. In fact, that's quite a good kind of acid test of if you're producing good content or not. So are people out there sharing it? That's the biggest measure of, is it any good or not? Because of course that means someone is willing to say to their friends or colleagues, look at this, it's really good, which is the ultimate compliment really when it comes to content. An overall thing here is basically think like a magazine. So what would a magazine do? Typically they would come up with an editorial plan for their audience and think, right, okay, let's talk about this month usability tips for e-commerce businesses, and maybe we'll do a few articles on that. And all the things I'm saying here have really come from the publishing world when I reflect on it, think about how they manage to produce good content regularly. So these are some examples of the sort of thing we do. Writing an e-commerce website specification document, 8 essentials. So yeah, completely boring to maybe 90% of the world. But if you're out there as an e-commerce manager needing to write a web specification, then this is the perfect blog post for you because it's got everything you need. We've got another one of those. In fact, that one is #1 on Google for that term and a few others, so we get a lot of traffic through that. This one worked well, 5 best premium Shopify themes in 2015. This is also a very popular one, free sample terms and conditions for your e-commerce store. And there's a lot of this stuff out there, but it tends to be aimed at a North American audience. So we were able to write one that's UK specific and figure out what the main things people should say. And also, obviously, we're not lawyers. So, well, first of all, I mean, there's a massive disclaimer in there. But second of all, we were able to do it in a way that's kind of understandable to people. Just say, right, here's basically what this means. So that was good in Google's eyes and got a lot of traffic. And these posts always work really well. So the 80 best Shopify stores for e-commerce inspiration. The sort of thing that people look, if they're doing a redesign, they come on this and have a look through what other people are doing. And these tend to consistently do well for us. If you're struggling for ideas, Moz have got a really good whiteboard Friday. If you just search content SEO, whiteboard Friday, Moz, you'll find it. The example here was about if you were selling desks, like stand-up desks. So they were saying you start on the right-hand green circle and you say, okay, let's think about some viral or super broad content that will get people interested in what we sell. So they've got a few examples. 17 scientific studies that show that work will kill you. Here's how. Work setups at Facebook versus Google versus Microsoft. There's all that kind of stuff that isn't exactly selling the product, but it's linked to what they sell. Then they've got discovery phase content. So they're assuming someone notices that standing up desks are a bit of a thing, and then they go off and do a bit more searching. So like benefits of a standing up desk, why sitting at a desk might significantly harm your health, that kind of thing. At that point, you're producing content that is quite focused on what you sell, but the great thing is you're going to know a lot about that, so you can write usually quite good content about that. And then you get down to consideration phase content on the left. I don't know why it goes right to left, by the way, but it does. So on the left, you've got actually posts about comparing specific products. So geek desk models, advantages of a geek desk preset height. So that's presumably a model of stand-up desk. So getting into the real detail where someone might be searching for this, they're about to buy it, and they're doing a bit more research, and they could land on your blog because you've got the best articles about that. So that's a good framework to use to come up with content for your agency. So for us, e-commerce managers and e-commerce entrepreneurs, what are the viral content they might be interested in, what is the discovery phase content, and what is the consideration phase content. So that's a good framework. Quick thing about headline titles, right? So I know that everybody is a bit sick of these kind of clickbait, like, you know, you'll never believe this one thing this entrepreneur did to grow their business, kind of BuzzFeed style. But the sad thing is this stuff really does work, and the title really is the most important thing in the article because people won't read it if it doesn't have a good title. So I'd say always have who, what, when, why, how. So again, a classic journalism thing. But here's some examples. How to promote your online store, the ultimate guide, or how Street Hub is introducing indie boutiques to e-commerce profit. So it will be very tempting to use something there like Street Hub interview or we meet Street Hub, but instead you've got to give it a real obvious value in the title of what someone would get from it. Numbers always work well. 5 things every retailer should be doing on Twitter. 13 examples of minimal e-commerce design to inspire you. So you see that sort of thing all over the place now because it works. Or you can combine the two, mix it up. 5 e-commerce predictions made for 2014. Who was right? How much does a typical e-commerce project cost? 5 things you need to consider when budgeting. So definitely spend time coming up with good titles. I know that, who is it? I think it's the Huffington Post. No, it's BuzzFeed, right? 30 titles for every post, and then they whittle it down and choose the one. So definitely spend the time coming up with titles that are going to get clicks. A key thing to remember when it comes to content is your agency will be full of knowledge. It's full of people already that know what you do. In fact, they're experts. So content marketing is great because it captures or leverages what is already present inside the company. Here's some tips though for actually making the most of it. Ideally, you get everyone to contribute, so you get your marketing team to write a bit about marketing, you get your designers to write a bit about usability and conversion. Just make sure that what they're writing is applicable to the target audience. So it can be tempting to say, right, we'll ask our designers to write an article, and then they want to write about, you know, some new way of implementing web fonts or CSS easing or whatever, right? Which to you and me is interesting, but it's not going to be interesting to our target audience of e-commerce entrepreneurs. So you need to put it through that lens and say, okay, what will someone that's running an e-commerce business that isn't technical really get value out of that our designers can write, for example? But yeah, hopefully everyone will contribute. Use a content calendar to schedule stuff and get it lined up, especially if you're trying to focus on a certain theme for a while. That can be a good way of making it all fit together nicely. Think like a publisher and keep momentum. What we found in the early days was you get a huge project, you get busy, you kind of drop the ball a bit and you do a blog post for a few weeks, and then it comes back to bite you basically. Your traffic goes down and you get less interest. So try and do sort of regular content meetings. That's one way of avoiding that. And also measure everything. That is the key, I think, to this. So figure out which content actually works and what doesn't. Finding ideas. Dedicated meetings will help for this. So actually sitting down with a group of you and saying, right, let's get out pen and paper and think about what are some ideas, and we'll come up with something that actually works. I think another thing there is actually looking at successful blogs that in your area and looking at what they're doing and do something similar. generalize from successful content. So go into your Google Analytics, look at the posts that convert best, and then do more of that. So for example, we did one of those example posts I showed you, like 80 e-commerce design examples for fashion businesses, and it got tons of traffic and tons of conversions. So therefore we know, okay, let's do another one, or let's do one. Let's do the 50 best fashion furniture e-commerce websites, or the 20 best gift e-commerce websites. So look at what works and do more of it, basically. Produce content along a theme, so I already mentioned that could be a nice way of making it interesting. And also consider what people ask you all the time, right? So when you get inquiries, there's these questions that come up all the time. So for us, it might be a question like, how do I do multi-currency in Shopify? So we can think, okay, we should produce a post that is a definitive answer to that. And then it's out there on the internet, getting traffic. And also you can send it to inquiries and say, well, I've actually got a good answer to that here. So that's a good place of getting good content ideas. And of course, keyword research. So go into Google Keyword Analyzer or whatever tool you want to use and putting in some keywords and figuring out if it's got any good suggestions for you and what else you could write. Uber Suggest is another good tool. So Uber Suggest, UBER Suggest. If you type in a word, for example, Shopify here, then it goes through Google and puts like the first letter, and then Google gives you 10 suggestions when you search. It does that for every letter of the alphabet and gives you the list here, which is inherently the most popular searches for that combination. So you can see if I'm looking at Shopify plus A, I can see there's Shopify apps is popular, Shopify abandoned cart, so we could write a post about that. In B, there's Shopify Bitcoin, so we might decide to write a post that explains how that works. So there's tons of ideas in there. You could run those through Keyword Analyzer as well to look at the ones that actually get the most traffic. Another problem with trying to do this type of content is actually getting the time to do it. So definitely dedicate a time of diary, and if you can, do a word count goal each day, especially if it's you that's doing it. So I appreciate that some of you might be small agencies where you're the one that has to do all the sales and marketing. So put away 2 hours a day and say, right, do not interrupt me during this time. I'm going to write my masterpiece blog post on how to have a more successful e-commerce business. Guest posts are absolutely killer, as so are interviews. If you can interview influencers or successful people in your world, then first of all, you don't have to write all the content, so that's great. And second of all, everybody likes to be interviewed. They're going to go out and share it to their audience. The key thing here is to make sure that the people you're interviewing are your target audience, not your agency mates or not people in your team, but can I go out there and say, okay, let's talk to one of our successful clients and do an interview with them about how they succeeded with their business, and then they're going to give us some really good answers, really good content for the blog, and of course they're going to get out there and share it with their followers and friends who are likely to be other people doing similar businesses. So a really powerful way to grow a blog is that. Repurpose other content. One of the key productivity tricks of content marketing is to repurpose stuff. So let's say I write a guest post for someone, then maybe I'll put it on our blog at a later date with a few modifications. Or say you've got a podcast that you record, get it transcribed and put it on your blog. So try and think about how you can use content more than once. And of course, you could ultimately employ someone just for content, and we have 2 people doing that now. And of course, that means you output a lot more content, and I think the return is there, which I'll demonstrate later on. And even if you think, you might think, oh, we've got a boring agency, we're not doing some interesting projects, or we're in a boring industry. I guess none of you will say that because you're all doing the same thing as me. But if you do feel like that, well, Maersk, who basically is like a shipping company, so pretty boring really, have got 1 million followers on Facebook by producing good content for sad people like me that think it's quite interesting to look at container ships. So you can see that even if you're a brand that is, if you're doing something that you might think isn't interesting to other people, there'll definitely be a way of making it interesting. And you can see here the trick is basically good content, well produced to get that following. And another thing, make sure you triple check everything for spelling. Spelling errors instantly destroy credibility, and it really does pay to have someone proofing everything that you do. And broken links as well. So Google Webmaster Tools will help you with that. This is a really cool free tool, broken link check. You just put your URL in, and then it will tell you all the pages that are broken on your site. And it always astounds me how many broken pages we have after a couple of weeks. And that's because people have changed stuff that we've linked out to. Our CMS redirects stuff automatically, but there's sometimes problems with stuff. So definitely run that, because Google will penalize you as well if you've got loads of broken links in your articles. And just go through and just check posts every now and then and make sure everything's still looking good. So measuring that second item. So we went through one, which was defining why we're doing it and our target audience. So 2, creating the engaging content. How do you measure it? How much time do people actually spend on the content is a big measure. So articles where people are leaving after 20 seconds probably not great. Number of visits, number of shares, I think is probably the most important one, because that is just such an important measure of if people are finding what you're doing interesting. And bounce and exit rates. So pages with very bad bounce rates have probably got something wrong with them, like a broken image, or they don't answer the question, or they're slow to load, for example. Here's some of our data from last year. And you can see that if you go to landing pages in GA and then sort by checklist requests, you can see there on the left, there are our most effective articles, giving away my trade secrets here. And look at the list, there's like loads of them are 5 great examples of e-commerce websites. What else we got in there? Writing an e-commerce website specification, writing a website specification, they convert really well into email addresses for us. So yeah, make sure we look at the data. Next, you've got to promote it. So you've got to write the content, of course, but it's like, you know, does a tree fall in the woods? You need to get out there and actually tell people you've done it. Tons of channels for this. So search engines, getting traffic from Google, whether that's organically or through ads, doing social, video, email, SlideShare, and iTunes if you're doing podcasts or stuff like that. Obviously, SEO is a big thing for doing content, because you're hoping people are going to discover it themselves, and people tend to start their searches from Google. If you think about Google's goal is to help people find things, if you make that easier, then you're rewarded. So that means providing answers that are good, and also having a website that's really usable and loads quickly. That's all Google wants. That is SEO, and I often tell people, don't worry about SEO, right? Just do good content, make sure the website works well, and make sure it loads quickly. And on a hosted platform like Shopify, it's going to be usable and fast anyway. So it's down to you to write the good content, or if you're doing your website on a different platform. You know, most modern platforms now will deal with the speed and usability element. So just providing good content is going to get you higher on Google. Having said that, there are some tips. So this is one of our articles. So best Shopify themes. You can see we're there at the top of the results, and a few ways to make sure you can do that. So optimize for click-through rate. That means this title and the snippet here, they're actually editable. So you can edit the title of your page. The actual title target HTML is what Google will use, which might be different to the actual post title within the layout of the page. And also the snippet can be set using the meta description. So make sure you write something there that actually explains what you're doing, which might not necessarily be the first paragraph of the blog post, which is what Google will use by default. So definitely tweak that to be appealing versus the other results. So optimize click-through rate of results. Use human-friendly URLs. So again, you can see there, it's wemakeWebsites.com, Shopify themes 2015 paid. Right, so it's pretty obvious what it is. Check your code in W3C Validator or whatever tool you want to use. This one's probably not so important anymore, but back a couple of years ago, connecting to Google Plus was quite a nice trick for SEO. Back then, actually, they used to pull in the author images, you know, the little author avatars next to the posts, but they've kind of killed that idea now, sadly. And yeah, improve your site usability. So Google is aware of how usable your site is, especially on mobile. So just make sure you run it through Google's usability tools and that it's happy with what you've got and that stuff isn't too close together or hard to use. And speed. Google wants to produce the fastest answers possible for its customers. So having a website that runs quickly, uses caching and a CDN, uses optimized images, all that good stuff, is going to actually, you'll see the SEO benefit, trust me. And of course, make sure you work on mobile. Since last year, Google has penalized websites that don't work on mobile. And yeah, you want all the traffic you can. The newsletter is a really good channel for us of promotion. So every week we send out 3 posts, and the amazing thing to me about a newsletter is that it's if you produce something of value that people are interested in, like we've already gone through these 2 steps of figuring out the audience, creating the engaging content. If you produce something that really helps your target audience, then if you email them every single week, even every single day, they're not going to unsubscribe because that stuff is useful to them. So don't worry about sending emails frequently if your content is good. In fact, I call it cleansing the list. That if you're getting people unsubscribing, then obviously we're not your target audience, because if you're producing good stuff and we're not interested, then there's not a lot you can do about it. The incredible thing about a newsletter is once someone's been on it 6 months, you're the person they associate with what you do. So for us, that's Shopify websites or e-commerce websites. And therefore, if they need that, then of course they're going to come to you. And also, if they have friends that need that, to say to them, oh, we're having an e-commerce website done, they're way more likely to suddenly say, well, I actually know an agency that do really good stuff, and here they are, because they've been on your newsletter for 6 months. The newsletter, for us, has been the single biggest success in how we've managed to grow our business. There's about 15,000 people on that list now, and that's growing every day. Social always works well. It's a bit more of a slow game, but use the features of each platform. So make sure that, for example, on Twitter, you post an image of each post, and you make sure that you use hashtags and things like that. Be useful and interesting, so same rules apply. Make sure that your Twitter or Instagram or whatever platform you're using is done through the lens of, is this interesting to a target audience? So your bio should be not, hey, we're a web agency in London. It should be, hey, daily e-commerce advice, follow to learn how to grow your business, for example. So it should offer utility. You don't even have to mention what you do. Be consistent. That goes for everything from image styles to how you write a copy to how frequently you post. Interact with people. If people are commenting on stuff, or you've got other people, like you interview people, then maybe you want to tweet them and sort of have a bit of a chat with them and say, hey, your post online, can you promote it? So then you also show up in their feeds as well if they reply. And we don't do this anymore, but for a while we used personal profiles, so it would actually be the individual that was doing the tweeting. It would be like their profile, and some brands still do that. We've actually switched back, but it could work for you, especially if it is just you in your company. Then that can be quite a nice thing to do, and people like that kind of authentic personal element. And of course, focus on where your customers are. So we recently tried Facebook for doing some ads and stuff. Didn't work. No one's trying to buy an e-commerce website on Facebook or learn about stuff. They just want to look at drunk pictures of their mates, basically. So instead, go on LinkedIn or Twitter or other channels that actually work for you. So that's our Twitter. These are pretty cool. So we're using promoted tweets at the minute to grow our audience. So there's loads of stuff you could do here. Here's an example where you could just write your own tweet and pay for it to appear in people's feeds, and therefore you get followers and people that are reading the articles through that, and it's not expensive compared to AdWords and stuff like that. There's a few more examples here, but I'll skip them. Definitely check out the Twitter ads though, they're really good. And this one's quite good actually, because if someone chooses to read more, you get their email address. So quite a nice way of growing your email list as well. In fact, you can read about it there. That's not our post. It links through to another company, but I've got a really nice summary of all the different tweets. I think here we'll send around these slides after, so if you want the links, they'll all be in there. Okay, so measuring promotion, about how effective you've been. Overall traffic levels, of course, but also use Google Analytics and actually look at which channels are actually working. So if you've put a lot of time into Twitter, but then you notice, oh, right, only like 1% of my traffic is coming from there, or only 1% of my conversions, then maybe you want to jack it in and try something else. So definitely use the feedback that you get from all the analytics that are available to us to figure out what you should be doing more of or less of. And here's the results. So this is quite old now. October 2015 wasn't a bad month. That's just the month I made this chart, and it was only partway through. So if we look at July 2015, we got up to 45,000 visits, and that's going right back to that kind of 2013 period. You can see the slow growth there, but now we're getting that consistently. So what is that a day? Well, it's about 1,500 visits a day, and they're mainly, of course, e-commerce people, because all we write about is e-commerce. So a certain proportion of those are going to be in the market for a website or in the market to sign up for our newsletter and then a website later. So super, super effective as a way of creating more awareness of what you're doing. So build a following. So although you've defined the audience and you've created the content, you want to make sure that those people actually come back, and you want to make yourself sticky, basically, so that people are aware of you and you don't lose them to other things. I've got a saying: A, B, C, D, E, E. It's a bit embarrassing. This. I'm surprised I left it in. Always be collecting those emails. Couldn't figure out how to do it with those. So anyway, remember, quite memorable. Hopefully. The way to do that is to add a pop-up. I know some of you are like doing that vampire sound now. I'll be like, no, pop-ups are horrible, I know. So if you don't want to do that, then do this instead. This kind of pop down here, which is what we do now. This converted at about 8%, so it was effective, but of course your bounce rate was higher because some people just press back and can't bother with it. But this one like reveals, so it waits a few seconds and it pops down, and of course you can still see the content. So it converts a bit lower, I think about 4 or 5%, but it still converts. The key thing there is to make sure you've got a lead magnet or something that is actually interesting. So don't say sign up for news. No one wants to hear news. They already get enough of that through everything else that they're doing. But if you've got some sort of thing here, like we've got this e-commerce checklist, then you're going to get a lot more email addresses. And a 5% conversion rate. I mean, if you imagine, for an e-commerce agency, the conversion rate is going to be below 1%. And for inquiries, I mean, sorry, for full website inquiries. Whereas if you've got 5% of people filling this out, that's 5% of people that otherwise would have disappeared off, perhaps forever, and instead you've got their email address and can actually market to them. So definitely prioritize capturing emails somehow. I've got the things here actually. So there's the conversion rates. Other ways of becoming sticky. Meetups, right. So we do a London Shopify meetup, so people tend to come along to that, and they've been on the newsletter or been on Twitter or whatever, and then they come to the meetup, and it's just another touch point along the way to them working with us. Podcasts are a good way of having another kind of touch point with your target audience, industry events, magazines, and YouTube videos. So don't limit yourself to blog posts. There's tons of ways of producing stuff that that makes people come back to you and follow you. Yeah. And the way to measure, so subscriber base, so number of subscribers on your newsletter, subscribers on YouTube, subscribers to your podcast, whatever it is. New subscribers, so don't get caught up in the overall numbers. So I was saying, oh yeah, we've got 15,000 subscribers. Bit of a vanity metric, really. The important thing is how many new ones are we getting? Like, are we still doing something that's good? So keep an eye on whether you're still getting new subscribers. Click-through rate on newsletters is something we watch a lot. So which articles do people actually click on? And then we can use that to refine what we're sending out. And repeat visits to your website is a good sign. If people are coming back and looking at more stuff, then that shows that you're actually doing something they like. Okay, final one. I'm nearly done. 40 minutes in. Okay, so nurturing leads. The key here is you don't need salespeople because the leads are already following you. So the people you want to sell to, they already know what you do. They already are a fan of you. They've been on my newsletter for 6 months, and that's it. They're already aware of you. I've already gone through this, so I'll skip it. the thing is that because they're on the list, like, okay, let me start that sentence again. The thing is, with an e-commerce website, it's very hard to ring someone up and say, do you need a website? Which I've tried, and it did work every so often. Like, 1 in 100, you get someone saying, yes, actually. But you get a lot of people telling you to, well, you can imagine the sort of language you hear. And even with email and stuff, it's not likely you're going to bump into someone by emailing cold emails that happens to say, yeah, I need an e-commerce website, and I accept that this email from out of the blue might be my potential agency partner. Whereas, if they've been over a newsletter or your YouTube channel or whatever it is for 6 months, they already like what you do, they know what you do, then when they decide we need an e-commerce website, then they're going to come to you. That is the point of this section. And the other thing there is, because you've educated them by producing content that is like saying things like how to make sure your website works on mobile, and then they're saying, oh, my website's not even responsive, then there's things that you've told them that they need without being aggressive, without saying, oh, your website's terrible, it doesn't work on mobile. Instead, they've learned that themselves by reading your content and understanding, oh, okay, this is what makes a good e-commerce website. So they're likely to come to you when they decide it's time for an upgrade. So those are the 5 steps. Define the audience. That's the most crucial one, I think. Create good content, promote it, become sticky so that they keep coming back, and then nurture the leads once they're ready to buy from you. Sales isn't in the list because they inquire when they're ready. Then you produce a proposal. Here's an example proposal that I've done. So we send that to them. Then we have the first meeting, which often goes well. And in fact, we convert at about over 95% of our first meetings end up becoming clients. And you can see the result in sales there. So it's the same chart I showed you earlier, but we've had a massive lift in sales because of all this work we've done on content. It's not been easy because we've got to spend, well, days, weeks, a year actually producing this stuff, but it's a lot easier, nicer, and more effective than doing traditional sales. So yeah, we've got more sales, more brand recognition, more people are aware of what we do, even even outside the industry, and people bump into me at events and talk about the stuff that we do. And you accelerate the word of mouth. So most agencies rely on word of mouth. It takes them 15 years to grow, but you could speed that up by having that content out there and having yourself more present in people's minds because you're producing good content that they look at a lot. And it's a real difference it's made to our business. So that's us moving from our old office when there was about 4 of us to a new one, and there's 15 of us now. And that again basically comes back to specializing in Shopify, specializing in one type of audience, and producing content for that audience. Okay, a couple of final things then. So we run a London Shopify meetup. So if you're in town, definitely come and say hello. If you just search London Shopify meetup, you'll find that. We're trying a YouTube channel ourselves. So that's me and Jay there doing a bit of advice for merchants. So that might be an interesting thing to look at to see the sort of stuff we're doing. You can view it if you go to WeMakeWebsites.com/MIM, M-I-M. It's called Making It Monday, is the channel. And this is a new thing we're doing. So that's Piers and I. Piers is my business partner. We're starting a new thing called Web Design Therapy, where we're going to do a podcast all about how to grow a web design agency. We're doing some recording this week, and it's not online yet. But if you've got questions or ideas or input or anything, you're my audience. You're the people I want to help. So email me, alex@wemakewebsites.com, and let's definitely chat. And yeah, if you've got anything you want us to answer about how we grew our company, then we'll do it on the show. And yeah, that's it. So overran a little bit. If you want to find me, that's my email address. That's our website. That's our Twitter. Got that little embarrassing underscore at the end, sadly, so don't forget that. And yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex. That was fantastic. An amazing overview of the story so far, and it's very interesting that you touched on some of the new initiatives that you're trying at the end. We've got a couple of questions in the in the GoToWebinar. David has got one for you. What's the best way to promote an article? I know you touched on a few points along the way, but if you would have picked maybe 2 or 3 things that you would always do to get the word out on a piece of content, what would they be?
Yeah, so I think you're definitely right to have some sort of like checklist or something, that you just do on every article. What do we do? So obviously it goes into the newsletter. That's probably the biggest thing for us now, but it didn't used to be because we didn't used to have any subscribers. So put it in the newsletter is good. Obviously put it on social. What you can do, we don't do this yet, but I'm thinking we should do it, is something like Medium. So Medium.com, the kind of content. I don't know what we call it actually, but it's kind of like a blog platform, I suppose. But they let you, or they're very in favour of you syndicating content on there. And you can even put a canonical link back to your website. And Medium's got very good SEO. It does like content discovery as a user. So if I'm signed up to Medium and I'm reading about web design, it will automatically figure out other web design articles that are good and send them to me. So that can be a good way of getting your content out there. In front of other people. And a similar thing is doing guest posts. So right at the start, we definitely did a lot more of writing content actually for other people's blogs, especially if they had more traffic already. So that might have been partners, or it might have been other web design blogs, or actually our audience was e-commerce merchants. So we did more stuff for kind of e-commerce blogs and things like that. So for example, around here, there's a couple of charities that help startup businesses. So we did blog posts for them, things like that. What else? I think those are the main ones, yeah.
Yeah, I think Medium's a very interesting case in point at the moment. When it started a few years ago, it was very much kind of for long-form blogging. It kind of had that vibe about it. But I think more and more people are finding very creative ways, and you can also map your own domains to it and things like that. So I think we'll see, although I think it's still a bit in flux as to where it sits in the kind of content ecosystem. My personal opinion is that Medium will become more and more important as time passes. But I could be wrong. So Michael has a question. How long did it take you guys to be able to produce content regularly, taking into account the multiple responsibilities you have when you start off small? And this is something I had a note to ask. Having known you, I've known you guys when you've been quite big, probably 10, 12, 15 now. But when you were kind of working out of the shed, how much of your day was spent or focusing on content?
Yeah.
And when did you feel that it was right? And this is me adding to Michael's question, I hope you don't mind, to actually define a specific role within the team and actually start having employees and team members?
Right, they're both good questions. So the first, in the end, we basically didn't turn down work or didn't make money on work because we outsourced it. We forewent the easy revenue, if you like, of me building the site, and instead I said, right, I'm just going to write the content. Obviously, as the agency owner, you've still got all the other stuff to deal with, like accounts and things like that. So the way I did it was, I thought, right, my most productive time is the morning, most creative time is the morning. So I'll schedule that out. Don't go on emails, don't do anything like that, and just try and write a post each day. And then in the afternoons, you do all the other normal stuff, which tends to be a bit easier to do and a bit more kind of routine. So that was how we did it right at the start. If I did it again, and this answers your question, Keir, I think the first person we would have hired would be a proper content person. So we did hire someone that was like a graduate to help with marketing, and he did help us with a lot of content, but he wasn't from that background. Whereas I think if we did it again, now knowing in hindsight, of course, that it worked, I guess that's the big thing. Over time, we didn't know if it would work or not. But knowing that it worked, I would say hire that growth person that will focus on content before you hire, your first developer or your first designer. Because the worst case is that they do a good job and you've got too much work. You need to hire a designer or a developer. Whereas if you do it the other way, you stunt the growth of the agency. So if it's just you and you can't afford to hire, then just schedule out time to do it. And yeah, sadly, you're going to have to forego, some work or some projects because you're just not going to have time to do it. But if you do have the budget to hire, then get someone that's really good at written content and make sure you check, the stuff that they have written before. And also, when you interview them, here's a tip: get them to actually write, something for you in an interview, because if people send you stuff that they've written in other jobs and stuff, you don't know who's checked it and who's amended it and stuff. So when you interview people, make sure you get them to write you something from scratch and just see if it's any good.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice. Just to follow up from Michael there, sort of, how is your team composed? I'm guessing that's asking maybe the breakdown of account management, design, development, content. Could you roughly say what?
So we've got So we've got 3 of us in the growth team. So I would say that includes me, even though I guess I end up doing everything as the owner. But 3 of us doing content in one way or another, but we actually outsourced quite a lot of the body of the blog post now. So here's an industry tip. So we don't write everything from scratch anymore. So we'll pay an agency to write us, the bare bones, because really a lot of this stuff is going out there, looking at what other people have written, bringing it all together, writing a better version. So that is what's called the skyscraper technique. It's a lot more. It's a bit more involved than that, but that's basically what it is. And you can pay someone else to do that, and then we look at it and we think, well, is that any good or not? And then we make it a bit longer and a bit more in depth, unless it's something about Shopify where we just know so much more than someone that we'd outsource to. So in that case, we'll try and get someone's time. So that'd be me or Piers, who's my founder, and we'll try and write the bare bones of the article, and then it'll go over to the marketing team to actually write, fill it out and give it a bit of character and add images and stuff. What was the other thing I was going to say about that? My mind's gone blank.
So in that respect, then, do they send back finished articles, or is it just kind of outlines or topics? How does that work?
You're asking the breakdown of a team, weren't you? Sorry, I'll come back to that. But just go back to the article thing. They send back like a generic blog post that's got some decent headings, and then it's finished in a sense. You could publish it, but it's not really good enough. And then we go through and elaborate on it and edit it and maybe add our own. And I don't know if I'm completely. I guess I wouldn't. I think the key thing there is, to some extent, that the core of the post can be written by anyone, but I think it has to be finished by you and done well and done with your tone of voice and stuff. But because there's only 3 of us and now we're doing quite a lot of stuff over YouTube and the blog and stuff, we have to do that, and we're trying to do some other things as well. But going back to the question about the team, just out of interest for whoever wants to know that, was it David? I think you said.
Mike.
Oh, Mike, sorry, yeah. There's 3 in the growth team, there's 2 account managers, and then everyone else is a designer. So that's 10 designers.
Right.
It's a bit like Spinal Tap, dealing with Spinal Tap.
Hello, Cleveland. Yes. Aidan has got a question. Can you recommend any good resources for learning to write specifically for the web? Is there any kind of go-to blogs or books or thought industry thought leaders that you respect and could share?
Yeah, so Moz have got a good blog that covers this kind of thing, and they've done it as well. So they do SEO, content for SEO professionals, and that's all they produce. So they actually do their own thing, eat their own dog food, whatever you want to call it. They have a few on there that's like how to SEO a post. Also, Neil Patel, he has an incredible blog that he sends emails every day with advice, so I assume he's not writing it all. But I guess going back to my previous point, actually, the point is that you're a brand. So even though I sort of know he's not writing everything, I know that it will be good and I know that it will cover what I need. So, it can be written by anyone. I'd read it as long as it had his name on it. But Neil Patel's got an excellent blog about SEOing articles and how to come up with ideas and stuff like that. So definitely check him out.
No, that's Neil. He's the guy behind I think Crazy Egg Analytics and a couple of other really interesting startups, and he does write a lot. Michael's got a bit of a follow-up question for you. When you started out, touching on how you guys started out, how do you build good relationship with freelancers to send work to? And I'm guessing this could be to do with actual content. It could be to do with design. Just sort of generally your experiences there.
With great difficulty is the answer. We've had some not exactly horror stories, but been left in the lurch quite a lot. I think So with written content, in a way, it's easier because the worst that can happen is the article's crap and then you can't use it and you've paid them 100 quid or 200 quid or whatever you're paying. Um, and then you use someone else. Once you find someone, I'll try and set something up that's regular and say, right, we'll pay you once a week for the articles and get that working relationship because whenever you work with freelancers, uh, there's always a sort of transactional cost to everything that you do. So even if it is a design project or a copy project or whatever it is, um, it's very different to have someone to having an employee sat in your office where they already know the context, they already know what you do every day. You could go over and say, please you need to do this today and this is what needs doing. With the freelancer, you've got that kind of call or email set up for every single task explaining what they've got to do. So to streamline that, I would try and find freelancers that you can work with on a regular basis. Obviously check their work beforehand, but like I've already said, obviously they're only going to show their best stuff and they might not have done it in their entirety. So experiment with a few and find one that's right for you. So we're actually we did this recently with written content and we paid 5 copywriters to write stuff for us, and then we just found the one that worked best, and I think that's the way to do it, so that you actually see what you'd actually get. In terms of finding them, I think we used Elance or Upwork or whatever it's called now to find them.
Cool. Yeah.
That seems to work quite well.
I think Michael's also interested around sort of website projects and freelancers. Any thoughts on that quickly?
Yeah, just definitely. Okay, here's one thing. Add contingency the first time you work with them for if they really stuff it up, because it's very tempting to find someone, okay, work looks good, get the ball rolling, 1 month delivery, and then suddenly, all sorts of things happen with us, like people have gone off, had mental breakdowns, forgot to do the work, all sorts of stuff. So when that happens, which it will, you need to be able to not have to spend all weekend doing it, and instead just have enough time to actually do a good job and do it yourself. So make sure you leave contingency the first time you work with someone.
And how do you find those? Is it word of mouth or just recommendations from friends and colleagues, or?
That was a few years ago. What were we doing? I think we were doing we were in a co-working space, and that's a really good way of you meet tons of businesses. There was 100 businesses there. And out of those 100 businesses, they all knew people. So you could send an email around saying, hey, I need a HTML, CSS person. Does anyone know anyone? And you'd usually get someone.
Great. Hope that helped, Michael. Always a tricky one. I think we've all got some horror stories of working with freelancers. We could all share. Just one more minute. I just had a quick question. If there's none other coming in through the chat. Around tools, I mean, what kind of, you talk about content calendars and collaboration and things like that. I mean, I'm a big fan of some tools, things like Grammarly, if anyone's ever checked that out. That's a nice plugin for Chrome that helps with kind of sentence structure and sort of phrasing and things like that. Are there any things that you guys use to produce all this content?
We use Google Docs. Yeah, we use Google Docs for collaborating on writing stuff. We also do our content calendar there, although we used to have a system for it, but it was better just to do it in Google Docs. And the content calendar is broken up into like inspiration from elsewhere, new ideas, and stuff for YouTube, basically. We have dates against it all. On social media, we use Hootsuite, and we also use this thing called Follow a Liker that kind of goes out there, and we can tell it, go look at profiles like this, and it will go and like them and stuff like that, which is kind of what everyone does nowadays in social media. For actually producing this stuff, I'm trying to think what other tools we use. I mean, a lot of it is just writing it in Google spreadsheets and sharing it around and getting 3 sets of eyes on it and then publishing it. And then we use, we've got quite a complex Drupal site that we use for publishing stuff where it's got like a workflow in it. So it goes into like review, then it gets published and stuff. So definitely spend time making sure your website is like tight when it comes to how the blog looks and how the SEO works on it, because that's what we all know. So we might as well do a good job of it.
Brilliant. And I think we just got one more question in, and I think then we'll let everyone go off and have lunch, at least here in the UK. This is from David. What's your plan to scale your web agency? It's obviously a very broad question, but any thoughts on how you're going to take it to the next level.
How long have I got, Keir?
We need another hour, having chatted with you about this before. But concise.
It is a great question. Yeah. So in a minute then. So we had this exact conversation recently because we never planned to grow just with people because it's difficult, it's expensive, it's risky. You know, if you get a downturn in work. So I think we're going to try and keep to the number of people we've got now, which I think has got a lot more potential in terms of productivity, and really tighten up things like process, which again helps when you specialize. So because we just do Shopify, same process for every project, for stuff that we don't, the stuff that we know to do in every project. So tighten that up and reduce the number of bugs and stuff, whilst also speeding up the throughput of work. And then the other side of that is kind of doing bigger projects, so scaling through selectivity with clients and doing bigger projects, because we've done both models, you know, the kind of high throughput, lower value, and also, you know, the higher value projects, and they both work, but the higher value ones are a little bit less stressful if you've got only a few of you, because, you know, there's less transactional cost, like I was saying, and you can get a bit more involved in the project and spend time on it in a way that makes you really proud of the result. So for now, the answer is cutting down costs whilst increasing the project size, and not necessarily just doing it through more and more people, which I think is something you don't want to do by accident. You want to do it in a planned way.
Yeah. No, that's I'm surprised you managed to put that into 2 minutes, knowing well, Alex. But yeah, Alex often talks about this. These conversations come up a lot. So if you ever come to one of the meetups that Alex and his team run, then I'm sure you can get the fuller expanded version. He loves to talk about this kind of stuff. We do have one great. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I just want to say thanks to everyone. Thanks for all those questions. I hope I meet you all at some point. And yeah, it's quite a nice thing to get together with all these kindred spirits all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, we did have one more great question. If you'll forgive me, Alex, I'm just going to throw it in. Then I'm going to call it a day. Forgive me if I've pronounced your name wrong. Kushagra. For someone who has an unusual name, I can only apologise if I ever fluff up someone else's, but hopefully that's close, if not right. Does content marketing work better in a certain point of the sales funnel, such as the customer has converted, or does it work relatively the same throughout? And I think you touched on a little bit of that, but if you could clarify, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I guess so. All our stuff's aimed at top of funnel, really. So it's someone out there searching for, I'm writing an e-commerce specification, or I'm looking for Shopify themes, and then hopefully they find us, and then they're right at the top of the funnel. Like they sort of know they want a new website, but they're not exactly comparing agencies yet. So most of it is for that bit. I think what I didn't talk about because we don't do it, but what I would do when I've got more time basically is set up a kind of drip campaign for new leads. So we do have a little bit of a thing that we do for each new lead that comes in, and by lead I don't necessarily mean an inquiry. I mean someone that joins the mailing list, because our mailing list lead magnet is an e-commerce checklist. We already know that they're interested in e-commerce and they're in the industry. So we email all of them and say, hey, we're here, and if you need a website, that's what we do. But I think a smarter thing to do would be to have like a 5-step drip campaign that goes one email a week or one email a day. That's like, hey, here's what you need to know if you're planning a website in 2016, and then maybe like, okay, 1, responsive design, 2, ease of updating, 3, So you're kind of selling the specific features of what you do, but doing it in a way that's kind of useful as well. So the mid-funnel content is what we're lacking, but I think that would be also a good place to do stuff.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So thank you everyone who joined us, and thanks for all the questions at the end there. I was a little bit concerned we weren't going to get any, but they came thick and fast once you finished, Alex, so that's really great to see. Jarvis, you've asked, will we send around the slides? Absolutely. What we'll do now is we will take the video, we'll cut it into take off the all the bits at the beginning and the end, make it look great, and we will share that with you.
Take out the jokes.
take out all the jokes, and that's we never do that. The content won't be edited. We just make the front and back look great, and we will then send that around to everyone who registered. So you'll all get a note about that. Are you willing to share those slides as well, Alex, we can push those
Yeah,
around.
that's fine. I'll send a
Yeah.
PDF to you, Keir.
Yeah, so you'll also get a copy of those. All I have left to do is thank everyone who joined us. I realise all your time is very precious, so thanks for taking the time to join this partner session today. We do a number of these. We're doing more and more. We've done ones on UX. We do ones on Shopify, specifically around theme building. We're doing more on the business side as well, so please keep an eye out for those. And obviously they're all free, so please do sign up if they're of interest. Alex, thank you so much for your time. I realise your time is as precious as anyone, so thanks for joining us. If you are in London and able to go to the Shopify meetup that Alex and his team run, I thoroughly recommend it. The last one I went to, there were probably 50 people spilling out of the room. It was a great night, a fantastic mix of merchants and people doing interesting things around e-commerce, and lots and lots of people from different backgrounds all working in the space. So it's a great night. When's the next one, Alex?
Great.
Do you know,
when is the next one? Good question.
we'll put it in the show.
Yet, but
We'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, it'll be next. About 6 weeks probably.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks again, Alex. Thank you for everyone who joined us, and we look forward to welcoming you to a future partner session. Everyone have a great day. Thanks again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.